Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Things We Know. I'm Lisa Callahan.
And I'm Kari Morin, and we are so happy to be here again with you for a topic, for just a beautiful, juicy conversation around something that fascinates us both, and one that we have brought up enough on previous episodes that we had to escalate and bring her on sooner because it's so intriguing to some of our listeners.
Absolutely. I mean, at some point I was like, we have been talking about human design and mentioning our human design so often. We better bring Amy on so she can tell us what human design is, because it's new to me in the last few years. And so I can imagine many of our listeners do not actually understand what this. So I am very excited to introduce one of my all-time favorite human beings on this earth, one of my work wives, Kari being the other one. So I do feel a little polygamous right now. What?
We're open.
No, it's an open relationship. Again, aside from being an amazing coach, a badass mother, this one I don't understand, but somehow she's already a grandmother. We are here to celebrate our very own mindset mentor and human design guide, Amy Douglas. Yay!
Thank you. What a warm welcome. So inviting.
So Kari and I have mentioned or referred to our human design charts so many times in previous pods, and how it influences us and how we operate differently in the world because of knowing our human design. So it just made sense to bring you on here and for you to share the wisdom you have with all of us. Again, besides being a gifted coach and a human design guide and a successful entrepreneur, Amy also co-hosts her own podcast called Love Human, Be Spirit, now in its second season. That's super cool. And I want to read one of the many glowing testimonials written about her. So it says, quote, "Thank you, Amy, for helping me uncover my authentic self. For the first time in my life, I'm in control of my choices and feel so empowered. I never knew life could be so good." I love that. And hallelujah, I agree 100%.
Amen. Yes.
I am so excited you're here, Amy. I am not exactly new to this. Actually, years ago, I found out my human design. Someone offered me a reading. And then a few years later, I was offered one. And then I had another one maybe a year or two ago. And it honestly was a couple months ago where it's not that it didn't fascinate me or offer me some guidance. I loved it. I found it interesting. I'd recommend it to other people. But it wasn't until I met with you that it fully landed for me. So it tells me how gifted you are at this, because something so powerful that can explain to you why people in the same family are so different in such a beautiful way really is, you're gifted at making this actually make sense. And I really appreciate that. I don't think I had ever understood it before. So for the listeners like me who like maybe didn't know what it was, or maybe they did like me, but they didn't fully understand it, could you give us the simplest explanation for it?
Yeah, it's your owner's manual to show you exactly how you're meant and designed, which, by the way, you chose for yourself before you were birthed into the world to be the highest potential, the highest vibration of yourself. It literally is an energetic blueprint that can tell you everything you ever wanted to know that you chose for yourself and how you're meant to show up in the world.
I remember the first time you called it a roadmap. I've been hiring you to read my private clients because I just find it it changed my life so much. And when I feel the hit that a client could also utilize this, it helps me as their coach. I think it helps them show up differently and be coached differently because they now understand things they didn't understand about themselves before. So it's been an absolute, I love hiring you to do that. But that was the first time you said that on a recording about it being our owner's manual. I was like, that is 100%. That makes total sense. What is it based on? I mean, I know you have to have your birth time, date, and place of birth, but it's not just astrological.
Oh, no. I mean, that's a big component. The
Right.
Hindu chakra system, the Kabbalah, the I Ching, and then a ton of neuroscience. I mean, there are 65 gates, and this is like a lot of granular stuff, but it's no surprise that there are 64 gates, 64 codons. So there's science that's just completely immersed in it as well. So, you know, I've always been a fan of some kind of personality, something, you know, definitely had to do the Myers-Briggs in my corporate life. Everybody kind of latched on to Enneagram. People want to know about themselves, but I am not shaming those. They're all fabulous, but you also answer questions based on where you are in your life. So it can be somewhat subjective. I know how to manipulate the questions to get the 4 fucking letters that I want. Okay.
So true. So true.
You can't do that with human design. It's very
Right.
specific data. And again, I will stand behind this. We chose this for ourselves. And so what happens is then we get birthed into the world, and all of the inputs, everybody around us, especially 0 to 7, we know this, everybody telling us how to be, how to act, you know, what to eat, when to eat, all of those things. And if we operated by the blueprint that we chose for ourselves, that roadmap, then we wouldn't have any of this external conditioning that happens. And so here we are as beautiful women. We are deconditioning from the ways that we were forced or taught or told to be, and we're realigning ourselves back to that. And it's somewhat uncomfortable, can be unfamiliar. Most of the stuff for me though was like, thank God, you know, I mean, that's how it felt. It was just like, I mean, I just had tears running down my eyes when I listened to what it meant to be a manifestor. I was like, this is what I've been my whole life. Quit telling me what to do. That doesn't work for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. The first, I'm like Kari. I think, in fact, we probably had a similar trajectory of who's read us. And the first time I was read, I am somebody that goes into those types of things, not really with questions to be answered. Sometimes people come into you with wanting to know some things about themselves, right? I don't. I'm like, just tell me what you see and then I'll figure it out. And every time I've been read, something has jumped out at me that has made me go, I used to feel guilty about that, or I used to, and I didn't even really wasn't aware of it, but it was hearing it. I was like, I used to think that I was doing something wrong by ABC. And lo and behold, it's exactly how I was made. And it just, that's why I say it changed my life, and it changed how I show up in the world. It changed how I coach, because I now know that the things that I thought were maybe weird or wrong are exactly right.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Beautifully
wow.
said.
I love that.
So you kind of referenced it. You have not always been a coach. You've not always been in human design. I have had the pleasure of being with you for most of your journey, because you and I first met when we went through our master coach certification. We were in the same mastermind together with two other amazing humans. What got you into this? I mean, you said you were corporate, you were a banker, for Christ's sake. So weird, so far removed from what you are now. So what got you into all this? Like, tell us your trajectory.
Well, I mean, I think I just hit a point in my life. I mean, to be completely honest, you know, I had a lot of health things going on that nothing Western medicine could identify for me. You're like, no, you're in perfect health. I'm like, really? My hair's falling out. I have insomnia. I'm having chest pains. I'm pretty sure I'm going to drop dead and my kids are going to find me, type of thing. And so I used my good friend Google, and, you know, he's never let me down. And he said, you need a health coach. And I'm like, what the hell is that? I mean, I'm from the Midwest. We didn't.
Right.
And so I just decided, okay, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to test it out. And of course, you know, then you get just peppered with all kinds of things. And so I just thought, I'm kind of a trust but verify type of person. And so while I liked what I was reading and what I was learning, I really needed to fully entrench myself. However, I wasn't allowed to moonlight in my corporate life. So I was very under the radar. I didn't want anything social media to be captured. And I remember the first live event I went to, I remember thinking to myself, this is either a cult or these are my people, and I'm going to give it the weekend to figure that out. And I was learning so much about myself. And as you both know, we have to have practice clients. And the mornings that I was having practice clients to go through my certification to become a coach, those were the mornings I couldn't wait to get up. But the mornings that I had to do my bank shit, no offense, all you beautiful humans out there that I served, you know, it was just like I was living off of the snooze button. You know, I was snoozing life away. And I had a belief system, single mom, that I had to have that corporate income was safe and secure. I mean, Lisa, you remember, God, I was I was a mess. And then I allowed something to shift. We worked through those limiting beliefs, right? All the 5 stages of transformation. I went through all of them multiple times, frontwards and backwards. And I made a decision, as you well know, at a retreat. And I just said, all right, here's what it's going to take, which was really lofty, by the way. There was a lot of things it was going to take for me to leave my job. And then from that July of 18 until January of 2019, one by one, I let them all go. Because again, they were just limiting beliefs. And so January 2nd of 2019, it took me 73 seconds to resign. It was a transaction. We're done here. And then in late 19, human design found me. You know, that's just how it is. And honestly, Lisa, it took a manifester for me to be like, okay.
That's right.
It does.
I remember because I got off mine and I immediately texted you and I was like, holy shit, you have got I can't, my mind is blown. And you did say that to me. You were like, you're a manifester as well. I'm a manifester. And that was the thing that made you go look into it.
It did. I'd already had it presented to me. I'd already looked at my thing. I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. I also don't have time to learn what this means. I'm not even, that intrigued. And then you said something, and then I started digging in, and then I just let myself be fully entrenched. At that point, I was in a 12-month container to learn about it. I've done various things just because there's so many layers, and I really enjoy learning it from different energy types too, and letting myself, and just the way it had me feeling. Same thing with coaching. It was like, I can't keep this to myself.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. I recently, and so I mentioned that I had a reading with you that kind of blew my mind, which I love. I love that you said it's like an owner's manual, and something that was really important that you explained to me. It's not, and again, it's not like I hadn't heard it before, but it landed so well with the way you do it, which was some of this you're going to find like, oh yes, that's me. And some of it is because you've been conditioned differently. Can you say more about that? You can give examples, but I think that that's been huge for me, because since our reading, and I'll mention in a little bit, that like little mini reading we had this week about me and my son, I have really been feeling into that. Like, oh, that's conditioning. That's not exactly, like that's what I was taught to do. That was what I was encouraged to do. But actually what feels more natural is this. So can you say more about that?
Well, I can talk specifically about me. Of course, I want to talk specifically about you, but I'll leave you to do that. But, I was operating as one of the energy types, the one that's referred to as the Energizer Bunny, has the most energy, multitasks like, a boss, skips steps, kind of like transforms time. And that's the way I had been operating my whole life. And it was what was modeled for me. Manifesting generators, that's kind of what they do. My mom was one, my dad was one, my sister's one. That's all I was around. And what was modeled was, the busier you are, the more successful you are, the more productive, idle hands are the devil's work, etc. And so there were times where I was just like, I am so exhausted and depleted. I don't know how I'm doing this, and then of course your body's your greatest messenger. And it was just firing off all kinds of signals like, adrenal fatigue, all of the things that can happen when you're out of alignment. And so for me, the most challenging part, I am a manifestor not meant to run at that speed. I'm fast, but I'm fast at things that I want to do. I have a closed aura. So I really am not meant to be so concerned about what everybody else is thinking about what I'm sharing. Lisa and I are meant to go in, we initiate, we inform, we drop the mic. We often don't even know the impact that we have, but we're not meant to take anything from start to finish. We are the initiators, and then we're kind of like, bye. And we're meant to have like 80% of our time spent in a rest cycle. Rest cycles look really different. You guys, I haven't had a rest cycle yet. So I'm still existing in that conditioning life, right? I think that my time in Florida before my daughter got pregnant and everything else in my life changed, was me starting to try to honor what a rest cycle could look like, right? And I will get back to that. There's just a lot of conditioning that tells me, no, you have to keep it up and you have to do these things. And honestly, I don't. And the more that I release that, the more of what's meant for me does come to me, and I'm actually available for it. Otherwise, we just, sometimes, quite frankly, unconsciously resist it, repel it.
Oh my gosh, I love this. Okay, so you both are manifestors, right?
Yeah.
So, so you can talk about me, but I'm a projector, and I guess I'm a very rare type of projector. And so what you just said about the rest thing, mine is slightly different, but I was conditioned to work, 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 work. In fact, to the point where we interviewed Kari Peters recently, and she's a projector, and she was saying the same thing, work, work, work. And I said, and yet we're supposed to not be the ones doing the work. We're supposed to be guiding the work. And that's something that I've really been feeling into, right? And so I'm dying for you to say more about that. But what was so interesting is I desperately came to you recently before I had a conversation with my manifestor, my emotional manifestor son. We needed to talk about finances and the things that he has coming up. And I waited for him to say, can we have that conversation? Which I think you'll give me brownie points for. I waited for him to invite me into that conversation, and we got on FaceTime. And because I had this reading with Amy, I think it went very, very well, because, you know, I have all these ideas and I can see exactly what would work better for him. And I'm such a problem solver. I can constantly see what's going to work better for people. And you and I had a reading that really helped me kind of sit on my hands, listen, and offer, you know, what I thought was helpful. So he should be thanking you. But can you say more about that? About
Well, I mean,
that whole dynamic? Yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, from my vantage point, projectors, as a manifestor, projectors feel the safest for me. You're probably one of the very few energy types that I actually let in my aura. And that's kind of like, Lisa and I, we don't try to have a closed aura. It just is. And it's to protect us so that our impact isn't diluted, right? Because think about the conditioning. You're too much. Don't say that. That's not right. That's too direct, you know, and be more compassionate, all of those things. And there's only 9% of us in the world. And we're the ones that are initiating on behalf of the collective, right? We're the only energy type that's meant to initiate. Wow. And so when we let someone in, that feels really safe. So that's why I said that to you about your son. You probably feel really safe. But if you start spewing without being asked, your wisdom is in there, but it needs to be called upon, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, the best thing for projectors to be doing is asking those questions. And, you know, we've talked about that a little bit. You just get curious with them, and then all of a sudden your wisdom gets pulled out. Or you say something, would you like a reflection? And you know how to do this because you're a coach, right? Mm-hmm. But an emotional manifestor and the mom dynamic, all those things, you kind of have to like tread a little lightly. And I'm not inviting you to tiptoe, but I also want it to be very clear. What does come out isn't personal. Sometimes it's not even true. It's very true in the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, emotions are not always true in the now, right? They come and they go. And so for you, you know, you had all this, your upbringing that you shared with me, there was a lot of rigidity. Mm-hmm. And you're not meant for that. You're very meant for ease and flow. And the 2 to 3 hours of output that a projector is invited to do in a daily basis, that is where you're sharing that brilliance and that wisdom. And the rest of the time of your day is empowering yourself to use that curiosity to really hone that craft and really see the improvements and the efficiencies, because you have this penetrating aura that you're absorbing everything all the time anyway. And so that alone time, retracting from all that, helps you kind of like conceptualize it, make sense of it, so that when you are called upon, you can share it. But you really need your alone time in your own aura. Otherwise, it's clouded too. You can't hear yourself. You can't get to your wisdom when there's so much other chaos going around.
Yeah. Wow. Boom. Amy could just like drop the mic and walk off right now.
Again, I feel like this is
all I ever wanted to do.
Yeah, right. This is one of those pods that feels like I'm going to beg you, even if you're listening, to go watch the YouTube, because watching Kari respond to what Amy's saying has been hilarious. Me too. Like because we're just like, oh yeah, yep, that makes total sense. Just for a second, why don't we take a moment and talk about what the different energies are? We've talked about manifestors. That's what you and I are. Kari's a projector. You mentioned a manifesting generator. That's what my daughter is, and your parents. So I have a really good question about that in a hot minute. There is generators, and then there's
husband.
Okay, your husband, and then there's reflectors, which I just looked that up. I'm so glad I'm not that. That sounds overwhelming. So you have a great analogy around baseball. Can you share that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So if you're familiar with the game of baseball, my son played baseball. Okay. So I'm very familiar, even when I didn't want to. So love you. So Lisa and I, as a manifestor, as you heard me share, we are meant to inform, and by our informing, initiations are created and therefore impact. And we're only 9% of the population. So in the game of baseball, we are the pitcher, right? Nothing starts in a game, any kind of inning, if a pitch isn't thrown. There's impact if it's a great pitch, there's impact if there isn't a great pitch. But then, in reality, the pitcher's kind of like done once they throw the pitch until the next time for them to pitch. And they're not just initiating with the pitch, they're also informing, right? Because they're informing, I think it's the catcher. I don't know. Thank God I'm a number of years.
It is the catcher.
But they're showing them the signs of what the pitch, and they're like, and the pitcher's saying back, and the catcher's throwing something back, and the pitcher's like, hell no, because the pitcher does not want to be told what to do. Manifestors don't want to be told what to do. And we're not stubborn. It really does keep us in our zone of genius. Okay. So we're not just being stinkers. So anybody that's listening to this that has a manifestor in their life, find some way to love and honor that, please. There's a lot of core wounds for us. Okay. So then you mentioned generator. So the generator is predominantly that batter, because generators and manifesting generators are meant to respond. Okay. And a generator is very focused. And so they're going to bat, and they're going to swing, and they're going to respond to every single, but they're also using some discernment to know what to respond to, right? They're using our inner authority to decide which pitch they're going to respond to. So that's a generator. A manifesting generator, the one that I referenced, that's the Energizer Bunny that does, multitasks, can skip steps. They're also meant to respond. So they can bat, responding to the pitch. They can be in the infield because they're catching whatever's coming that for the batter has done. And they can be in the outfield. So they really can be all of those things, but they're in all of those areas of the game, they're responding. And then Kari, you beautiful human, because you can see the energy and you have this absorbing ability to know what everybody's, their zone of genius is, and you can guide them into that role for themselves, and the improvements and the efficiencies that the team needs to win. You as the projector are the coach. And then the unicorn that you referenced, Lisa, only 1% of the population. Generators and manifesting generators make up 70%. They are the people, they are the doers, they are the workhorses, they are the builders. Lisa and I want to connect with them to do the thing that we've created, and then we just want to walk away. Like, here you go, we're done here.
My God.
And then Kari comes in as that CEO, that guide, that leader, and say, okay, here's the best way for us to do all this. But you got to be invited, right? Okay. And then that unicorn is the umpire, because a reflector is out there mirroring and sampling everything that's going on, like the auditing of what's happening. And then they're reflecting back to everyone, which is exactly what the ump does.
Oh my God, that analogy is so good.
Finally, the fans play the biggest role, because they are the conditioners.
Oh.
They're the ones that are cheering. They're the ones that are booing. They're the ones that's telling everybody what to do, what not to do, right? Trying to overdo what the coach is already trying to tell them, or get in their heads of all the players that already know what they're meant to be doing. But then that conditioning has them question it and doubt themselves, and dilutes their, how they shine.
That is just the most perfect analogy. I don't have kids that played baseball, and I still know what you're talking about. Plus, I think it's interesting, Kari, you said you could see everything Peter should do. And I'm like, as soon as you said that, I'm like, there's the projector, right? There's the manager. Right. You can see what should be done. And Peter's going to.
Yeah, and he may not want to come over and powwow with me. What you just said about the fans, so fascinating, because he's an emotional manifestor. I'm a projector. I could watch and feel this literally in his baseball career. His love of baseball got sucked away by the fans, usually parents, who like their responses to like bad hits or bad pitches or something really like sucked his joy out of that game, not just his own, but other people's. Like, he just was super turned off by that. So it's funny that you say that, because we talk about that a lot, how parents ruin sports.
So much. And what position did he play, Kari?
He was often on second or third base.
Okay. And this is your manifestor?
He's my emotional manifestor. Yeah.
Yeah. So see, that was misaligned for him. Jackson, my son, emotional manifestor as well. We've talked about this, 6'2", like yours. He was pitcher. Very aligned. But that conditioning, unfortunately, it came a lot from inside the house. The call was coming from inside the house, right? And so he got a lot. And so he just lost his passion for it, because you know, he kind of knew what he was meant to be doing and didn't really want all the negative feedback, and it diluted his power. He was a fabulous pitcher until he lost his passion for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And let me tell you, that is typical for manifestors. We do something until we do it. And then when we're done with it, it's dead to us.
Well, you just described my youngest, who's also an emotional manifestor. So yeah, that's it. He just moves
And
on.
we've we've taken a lot of slack for doing that, right? Is that the right word? Whatever, you know what I mean?
Black.
Like,
Yeah.
Black.
Yeah. I was like, that didn't sound right. And you know,
yeah.
it's 7:30 at
You're
night.
right. Like,
I know.
we have said that to him so many times. Like, what you into now, right? Like, so he like, God love him. He's like, I'm into this now. I'm into this now. Although it's interesting, piano and drums has been the thing that he has stuck with. Yeah.
So there's still the conditioning hasn't gotten to him. So that's interesting. We're going to talk about Kari and I here in a second. I have a question about that because you said something that I was like, holy shit, that's exactly how we're running this pod. But I'm going to start with the fact that I live in a house. Well, Liam doesn't live here anymore, but Liam, Darren, and I are all manifestors, and Charlotte's a manifesting generator. You, as a manifestor, grew up with all man-gens. So I remember when you read Darren and the recording, you said, poor Charlotte. And I kind of laughed because I'm like, I'm going to have to ask her, and I haven't yet. So I guess I'll ask you now, why poor Charlotte? And I'll tell you what I think it is, and then you tell me what it is. One of the things about a manifestor, as you've already said, is that we have to have downtime. And Darren and I have. I mean, we love to take naps, and I do take my days off and go to the pool and all that jazz. And Charlotte is go, go, go. I mean, she texted right before this, and she's a assistant director, choreographer, makeup, and tonight she's ushering a play. Like, she is always on the go. So I wondered if poor Charlotte meant she's living in a house full of people that are like, yeah, no, I'm taking a nap.
Well, I mean, it's almost better that it's not the other way around, because when you have, we refer to them as sacrals. The generators and the manifesting generators, only two energy types that have defined sacrals. The rest of us are jonesing for it. Like, God, can you give me a fix, right? You know, but if it were the other way around and there were three manifesting generators in the house and then one manifestor, that manifestor is going to look really lazy. And unfortunately, that dynamic happened a little bit for my son, not for me. And I didn't even know design then, but you know, from other people in the house, he was, you know, because he desired his alone time, and he didn't have to be of all the things and do all the things. And I never forced it. I was like, dude, just do you know, everybody else is already taken. So just do you. But what I said, poor Charlotte, is because we can be really intimidating.
Oh, Charlotte's not intimidated.
Yeah, okay. But you're also her family. And if we're aligned, we have a tendency to have really strong boundaries about ourselves, and we really don't give a lot of fucks about what other people think. And it's kind of like, and this is how this is going to be. And so that could condition that manifesting generator to be like, well, should I be like this too? You know, like, that's where that conditioning potential comes in.
Gotcha.
And I have never heard you dim her light. So
no, I definitely don't dim her light, but that's a good, interesting, because I do, like, she'll be like, I'm going to go do such and such. I'm like, okay, find a ride. Because I'm going to the pool, you know, and I've always, I do make her find her way. So okay. Thank you for clarifying that. That is interesting. Okay. So one of the things you talked about, that I heard really early, is that this is meant, it was meant for people to know the minute they were born so that they could live. So what's important about knowing the strategy that early on?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned in the intro, I now have a grandson. He's going to be 4 months old on Saturday. And so, you know, all the gajillion hours that my daughter was in labor, I thought he was going to be a splenic manifestor. So I'm telling them all these things. I mean, we were in labor forever, and I'm telling them all these things about their beautiful son that's about to come in the world. And then he decided to come 17 minutes later. And that amount of time shifted, the transits shifted, and he actually is a manifesting generator, which is perfect for him. He chose this because a manifestor in a house full of sacrals, the same thing would have happened, right? He would have been conditioned. He would have thought his whole damn life that he wasn't enough. And he said, nah, I'm going to take the easier path. I'm going to be similar to my mom. I'm going to have one more defined center so I could show her who's boss. I'm going to have the same profile, and it's precious. But here's the thing, when they're little, some of that noise, we talk a lot in readings about the not self, on how to decondition. These babies don't need deconditioned at all. So what we're highlighting is, okay, this is how their digestion works. This, like all those little things, like the only center that he doesn't have defined is the G center. So he is irritable or uncomfortable. I tell her, I'm like, move to a different environment. The G center is all about your environment. I'm like, just move to a different room, go to where there's sunlight, go to where it's dim, go where the sound changes. So many little inputs and variables shift. And every time she does that, he's fine. Like, we fought for years to figure out what was going on with our kiddo. And so this blueprint, it's like, okay, teach them their inner authority, how they're meant to make decisions, right? Teach them if they're emotional, it's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with them, because we're taught to quiet and silence our emotions. Don't act like that. Don't act out. Don't be like this. And I'm like, let him be all those things and let them be okay. Like, because then what will happen is it won't last as long. And his emotional wave, he actually gets nurtured by having pets. They have a dog and 2 cats. I'm like, he's set. He's going to be comforted just by having them. Like, do you see those little elements that you don't know how to, because they can't speak? All the information's there. So I have a little digital library for them of all of these things. I just created little, 8, 10, and 12-minute segments. I'm like, just go into the library and find out what you need,
Oh,
amazing.
I just want my kids to have you for a grandmother, because I was thinking about that. Griffin, who's my middle, is a pure manifesting generator. And he's got 2 emotional manifestors on either side of him, older and younger. I'm listening to this. Well, first of all, okay, listening to you both a second ago, I was like, first of all, Poor Charlotte should be a band name. I don't know why that's not cool.
Because it's Good Charlotte, the other band.
Yeah, right.
So it's the
But I was
opposite.
like, Poor Charlotte. I think it's the name of a song, actually. But the other thing I was thinking was like, dang, that middle son of mine, who is unique in so many ways and struggles with so many things, like really, like I wonder if some of his issues in the world, and including his seizure disorder, is his ways to differentiate. They're so tight and they're so close, and they have such a great influence on each other. But yeah, I do see him constantly like in that battle between, should I be more like them or can I be more like me? And it's so fascinating listening to you and thinking about that.
And here's the thing, if we all had our owner's manual, we wouldn't ask, shouldn't we be more like? Because we chose this.
You're so
We'd be
right.
like, oh wait, I already know what I need to do. Okay, let me just check. Let me check in with myself. And then all of that noise outside of us, I've said for so long, if we didn't have the gift of sight, the amount of judgments that would be out there, oh my goodness, they would go away, right? So here's the thing that I think this, that you come into the school system with this. You're saying, all right, because mangens don't even try to make them sit still. That's the worst thing that you can do, the poor things. So then all of a sudden they're told, okay, they have ADHD or all of the, no, they don't. They just have spastic energy because they're so supercharged and they're bored. You're not letting them do 17 things at once. If you let them sit under the table and tap their pencil on the floor and kick their legs and read the thing, it's going to be magical. And then for me, just tell me and then fuck off and let me do my thing. Like,
yes.
And then the projector, like, what do you think, Kari? Tell us what you think about this book you read. And you're going to be like,
Right. Yeah, totally.
It's just, if we were operating from that, you guys, man, we'd all
Totally
stay
different.
in lanes. It'd be so different.
Maybe you should open a school, Amy.
Well, I don't want to run it.
Right. She can start it, and then she needs the mangens to
and then
run it.
I can tell them how to run it.
Yeah, you're the schoolmaster. You're the guide, right? They come to you. But yeah.
Who are the teachers?
Definitely generators, because they're very focused, right? They're very
Excellent.
focused. They have a lot more patience. I don't.
Me neither. Oh, this is so cool. This is
it is so. So let's talk a little bit about Kari and I.
What do you want to know?
I'm both like excited and nervous. Well, I'll start with what struck me when you said something earlier. And I can't exactly remember because I was so focused on what I wanted to say about Charlotte, but I do think there's an aspect when I think about how Kari and I do any given episode. We've both come up with ideas, but we have come to get to the point of Kari does the writing. She's written these beautiful scripts for these all of these pods. I mean, I get it from her, and I'm just like, holy shit, this is amazing. I have no desire to do it, and I literally look at it the minute before we start. Like, I just need to know right before, and then when we're done, I do all the not the editing, but I get it up on the systems. I organize all the social media. So I am the sort of like, I come in and do what I want to do and I leave. And she's got all this glorious, like, I don't know, beautiful writing. And so it is fascinating to me of like that idea of I come in and just go, here's what we're doing. And then she makes it gorgeous, So that's what struck me around the manifesting projector thing. Anything strike you, Kari, before Amy shares?
Well, it's funny that you say makes it gorgeous, because I was thinking, after there's this video, right? And so I will watch the video and listen, and I will, and being like the person who's listening for stuff and listening to to solve stuff, I can see where I can sort of recommend for edits where we take things out so we can really hear someone say what they're saying. So that's kind of also what I do. But I think you make it gorgeous because you're the one who kind of knows exactly how to put it out to the world. So it's funny that we both see each other that way. And yeah, the ideas come from this whole pod comes from our back and forth. Like, if we were to go back and sample our little polo videos to each other and our texts, like, we've generated a lot of these topics and ideas, and then we crack up. We're like, are these all a different version of the same thing? I mean, because it's our conversation. So that's where, like, it's hard to tell, like, who's being what there.
I'm curious. So Kari, I heard you say, so you must rewatch, re-listen, right? Like the experience happens and then you do that. And then from that you create, right? Which is beautifully aligned for you. Lisa, do you re-listen or rewatch?
No.
Me neither.
I mean, I do. I listen to the pod when it releases. And I didn't for a couple of them. And then I made a mistake. When I did my video, it didn't align. And so I was like, okay, I need to go listen. But no, I wasn't actually re-listening. You don't either?
No. Why would I do that? I had the conversation. There's nothing I can do about it. I don't need to revisit it. It's done. Moving on.
I'm not doing the editing though. That's what Kari's doing. She's going in and watching these videos and then taking it and saying to the editor, this is what we should do. So it is that manager role.
And to be clear, it's because we're new at this. We don't expect that I'm going to be doing this forever. It's just like, oh, we're learning to not talk over each other. Oh, we're learning about our sound quality. So it's not like I'm trying to, I think that, yeah.
I want to give you permission to do it as long as it feels aligned, right? Because whatever you're creating from it is gorgeous, like Lisa said. And my podcast co-host, who's also a projector, she's the one that does that. And she's like, she can't wait for me to upload it in our portal for her to listen. And I'm like, I'm never touching that. Okay. That's just, and so that's the duo. That's just the gorgeous energy of putting a manifestor and a projector together, because you guys are what we refer to as non-sacrals, right? So we don't have all that life force energy pumping through us, and you're staying in your lane. But can you hear how beautiful it is for your audience to be able to have to witness and be able to take in and interpret Lisa's ability to initiate and inform, which absolutely is creating impact, and your brilliance in guiding it and finding the improvements and the efficiencies and sharing the wisdom when you're invited to do so. It is so potent. It is literally in the human design world. That's why my podcast co-host and I, we call ourselves the dynamic duo. It really is the most masterful way to have something delivered. And because we understand each other with our energetic output, neither one of us are going to force or push or anything and you guys have a different dynamic as far as your inner authority. So Kari, for you, I would hope that the way that you would respond to Lisa is take all the time you need. How much time do you need to make a decision? Like, if you guys are meant to lean on something, it's really giving the emotional authorities time to really connect with their truth. And for you, Kari, because hopefully Lisa is a trusted advisor for you, and she's not someone who's trying to manipulate you to making a decision, you're going to just talk it out until you come to that clarity. And it's important for you to give yourself the space to do that. And a manifestor is great at that too, right? And she has a lot of that energy in her design anyway. So Lisa does to be able to listen. And she's, Lisa, you and I've talked about this, but you have that leadership part of you. So of course you're meant to come in and say, here we go. And you're not doing it because you don't think Kari can. It's just the right role for you to be playing. And what has happened in the world is somebody's like, well, I should be able to do that too. And I'm like, look at your design. Because no, you're not. Stay in your lane. Your zone of genius is here. But yet we think, oh, but I want that. And I want that. I want curly hair. I want, no, just look at the things and then recognize how magical your life will be by letting yourself be what you chose. It's just that easy. Now, maybe I'll say it's just that simple.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't mean it's easy. Okay.
Well, because we're working against all the conditioning.
Yes.
It's going to be that simple, perhaps, for your grandson, because
100%.
his parents know what he is, how he was born. Right.
He's such an observed. I mean, he's so he's a Capricorn. And so God love him. He just watches and he listens. And I have told him everything about his design from head to toe. I don't know how many times now. And he just sits there in just awe and just looks at me. And sometimes now he's talking more. So then he'll get his 2 cents in. I'm like, I know, isn't it magical? You're such a brilliant kiddo. It's just like, and I constantly remind my daughter, I'm like, he is not someone that's going to be controlled. You can try to put your thumb on him and that is going to cause friction between the two of you. He has more definition than you. So just by design, he's going to be conditioning you. He's going to be conditioning, her husband. That's how it's going to work. And the more open you guys are and let go of the old noise that, well, we're adults or we're the grownups, we're the parents, we know more. No, we don't. My kiddos know way more. They're so much more evolved than I ever was, at their age. Yeah. Why don't we embrace that? They're our future. So when the founder created this, he created it for the kids. And then he realized, oh shit, in order for the kids to know this, we got to teach the parents, and they got a lot of deconditioning to do to be able to empower their kiddos to be their highest potential too. And so that's what I'm trying to push more into the world, is like, please. And all 3 of us have a 5 in our profile, and that 5, we want to change the world. We're the global solutionist. I heard you both say, you have solutions to things. People are coming to us for that all the time. We just get to choose wisely based on the energetic output that we have, which calls we take, right? Who we feel inspired to help. And because you guys have your first number is that 5, you want massive global change, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And it's just like, I see that, I hear that in your podcast episodes. You guys are doing that by sharing what you share. It's so amazing.
We talk about it all the time. Wouldn't it be great if like this would happen? I have a question about something you just said because conditioning, like if Lisa just takes something on, conditioning will tell me like, I should share the load. And I'm not trying to take leadership away from her. Sometimes I'm trying to share the load, but explain the difference between leader, because I get that, and guide.
Well, yes. So, that is a fabulous question. And the way that I would share that, and remember, this human design is the science of differentiation, showing us all how we're unique, but it is an experiment. So how it lands for me, as you navigate your experiment, it may land differently for you. But for me, this is where Lisa is coming in and she's saying, we need to do this, and these are the people that we need to set in place to do these things, and I'm out. And you come in and then you oversee it. You're absorbing it. You're actually in the trenches of it. You get energy from others. Lisa and I don't get energy from anybody. Quite frankly, sorry, my Apple Watch.
Yeah.
So you come in and the guiding is based on what you've observed and what you've absorbed. Lisa and I aren't going to do that. We're not going to observe and absorb anything. It's going to come from somewhere within us, whether it's channeled or whether we just have this urge, and then we're going to share it, and then we're out. We're not going to look for the efficiencies and the improvements necessarily. Kari, you are, and then you're going to share that wisdom for the people that it is meant to land for long after Lisa and I have lost our drive for whatever that was. I mean, think about any podcast episode. Okay, we've got a guest. Here's what I think we should cover. Here's, the song I'm thinking. And then you come in and then make it be the thing before it actually even goes out to production, which is a beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, sometimes sometimes it's the opposite, right? Like sometimes I'm saying this is the guest and this is the song. So I think we share that, but Yeah, it's hard for me to understand the difference there though, between like doing all the work and doing the guiding. You know what I mean? Like when you describe what you and Lisa do, you come in and you're out. I really thought that that's what projectors were doing. Like projectors were guiding it, but they're not doing the work.
Well, you're in the world, you're just not of it necessarily, right? Like you don't have to be, you're not meant to be doing all the things, but if you're not witnessing it and observing it, and here's the thing, Kari, you're doing it without trying. You just have this absorbing, you're into somebody's aura without them even knowing it. And quite frankly, without you knowing it, which is why it's so important for you to pull back and step away. And so I'm assuming that you're navigating the things that the two of you are doing outside of your time together when you're in the quiet stillness of your own aura. And then you're saying, oh, we could possibly do it like that. We could possibly do it like that. And so, yes, either one of you can do this for sure. You're just not meant to be necessarily the initiator. And I hesitate to say that because I don't want anybody thinking they can't, and everybody can't initiate, but it really does land when it comes from the manifestor. That is how it is mechanically meant to occur. But that doesn't mean, I don't want you thinking, oh God, I can't even call a friend to go to dinner. That's not it. Okay. It doesn't get that down in the weeds. Does that help? Not yet. Yeah. She's like, no, not yet.
I mean, I guess I think of something and a leader, or I mean, this is my thinking of it, is like, because I tie leader to initiator, right? So I'm going to say, here's what I'm going to do. And then I'm out so like I record this video, I send it to you, and then you guide it to its production. That's where I think I picture a guide, right? Like I picture somebody who is guiding this to fruition. Yes, we both have ideas and we share them and all that sort of thing. But for me, Amy kind of nailed it, right? Like when this pod's done, I'm going to send you the video and then I'm like, I'll listen to it when the pod releases. Yeah. Whereas you're in there guiding it to the production. So that, and right, maybe we aren't always going to be doing that, but right now that's where you're at. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's funny that those first 3 were not edited by me, right? And I've never listened to them.
That's interesting.
So that's something I was going to ask. Do you feel like once your editing is done, and we're talking obviously just specifically about the pod right here, this isn't everything in your life, but do you feel like you can let go, or is there's always something?
Totally. I let go. Yeah. There's so many things that I put out in the world and I don't even look at or listen to again. Not because I'm critical of it, but because I feel done with it.
Yeah.
But are you more curious about what others are doing and, kind of what you can glean from that? Like, did you guys, listen to a series of podcasts?
Yes, I did.
I did not.
I get really, I go to them not to copy them, but to get inspiration and get like a feeling for like, ooh, I want to do this a little differently. Yeah.
And that's just it. Do you see you're doing that? You're getting into those auras and you're identifying what you like. And then you're coming in and seeing the improvements that you want to make it your own.
Which you have totally done.
And Lisa and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It does make us sound a little bit bratty. I mean, you and I did have this conversation it was interesting because you and I had this conversation before the pod launched, and I made the comment to some people that I know that I didn't care who listened because I just feel like the right people listen when they're going to listen. And it was reflected back to me, oddly now knowing from another manifestor, so it doesn't totally make sense to me, but of like, how could you not care? And I'm like, I just don't. And there was a little bit of a kerfuffle around that. And I just knew that it's like, I'm going to have the impact I'm going to have, and I can't worry about it, and that is confusing. And you said we are misunderstood in that, manifestors are misunderstood in that way because we are just sort of like, peace out.
Yeah, we're meant to, because if we're busy, then we're not going to be available for the next creative, and projectors, you want to be recognized and acknowledged. So of course you want that feedback and you want to be in that. And it's beautiful for you because when you're recognized and acknowledged, more and more of yourself you let out and you share. And that's what we need.
That's the part, like, I think I have conditioning against that because I that's the part I don't relate to is like, I get really shy about it. Like, it's so interesting. I've often been told that I don't really want recognition, and I do. You're right. Who doesn't? But
yes.
I've often been that person who's like, yeah, please don't give me a gold star for doing the job that I just did. Like, I don't
You know
need
what,
that.
Kari, let's go back to the baseball analogy. The leader of the game is, if we're going to use the word lead, the pitcher is leading the game. It's starting everything. Okay. But the coach is guiding the game.
Mhm.
Let me tell you, that pitcher is probably not going to do another damn thing until it's time for them to pitch again.
Maybe
Right.
3 days later, because they're
Yeah.
not gonna, they don't pitch every day, right? They have
Right.
to have rest periods.
But Kari, you're always on, you're always in it. You're always observing, you're always watching. And when you're called upon, you're going to share, and then you're going to be acknowledged and recognized. And I will say, it's really important for projectors to acknowledge and recognize their brilliance for themselves first, because then that empowers you to speak on these things when you're around others, so that the invitations can come for you to then share your wisdom.
It's funny because that part I relate to. That part I've always been like, I have the best ideas. I know what should be done here.
Yes, of course you do. But it falls on deaf ears if you're not invited, which isn't fair.
Right.
It is the way,
Yeah, but I don't feel unappreciated or unutilized in that way. I just
Good.
feel like I always, what I've learned is just because I can see how to do it better doesn't mean that I need to speak that right now. That's not the most important thing here right now. And unless someone asks me, I can keep it to myself and I can just enjoy knowing how to do it better.
Yeah.
But I don't ever feel like, oh, they just should ask me. Like I've learned, I think I remember being like a middle schooler and feeling like everyone should do things my way. Right. And then you get responses socially back from that, like, that's not cool. And so I learned to sort of keep that to myself. But I do, like, in a house, I don't know, I guess I thought it was female living with all males, but in a house where I'm like, how do you pass that and not do that? Like, how do you, like, why'd you go this way and not that way? I have like learned to just sort of crack myself up and hear that and not feel like everyone has to hear it. So that for me, like, just feels natural. What I notice professionally about myself is, I think the part that I do have down is I'm not someone who's big into like, everybody listen to me, come here. I know that I should share and then people will come towards me. I think I'm a little less into like looking for recognition than I'm supposed to be, right? And I constantly feel like there's like my conditioning is that that's vain, right?
No, it's so beautiful.
My
And
conditioning tells me like, why do you need to be told, like, pat on the back? So I've really convinced myself like, I don't need a pat on the back.
But that's just it. Just, your mechanics. When you receive that, it empowers you to stay in alignment, to be able to continue to be that guide. And, I talked specifically about Lisa's design because she has the channel that is all about really powerful leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So, while she is a manifester, but that is an overarching, where projectors are meant to be the new CEOs, the new leaders, the new guides of the world, because you're not like, this is the way it's going to be, and it has to be like this. You actually, where Lisa and I, a lot of the stuff that comes to us comes from within us, or, is channeled to us, whatever that is. And you're witnessing it more. And that's what's different. So if you think of some leaders before that were dictators, that while a lot of them were manifestors, to be real honest, okay, but they had a lot of conditioning that told them that's how they had to show up. And that's not the way it's going to be going forward. We really need the projectorness to be the ones that are guiding and leading.
Like 100%, this wouldn't have dropped when it dropped if it weren't for Lisa. And I will tell you that all the time. Like it, like there's so many things that I'll kind of, sort of, she'll tell me I ground her and I'll tell her she stretches me, right? Like she will get us to a place that I wouldn't have been in a hurry to get to. And she'll get us there because she's just so clear about it. But Lisa will tell me I ground her. But what you just said makes it sound like, oh, maybe I heard it wrong. Like she's the grounding force. No?
This is just it. It's up for your own interpretation.
Oh yeah.
I would say that my projector co-host grounds me too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she often reminds me when my conditioning shows up, but what if we didn't? You know, like I'll be like, okay, we should probably, and you know, we get caught still saying that word, the should, you know, then I'm like, oh, I forgot, we can do whatever the fuck we want. I don't have to do any of that. Right. Like we say that a million times on our podcast because we're reminding ourselves, because we're creating a new thought pattern to get rid of the old one.
I think I'm famous for reframing things into like, what if this is what we're meant to do? What if we don't have to? We don't.
You are famous for that.
I know.
You and Amy both. I mean, Amy's gotten really good at that too. Like, what if?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I kept what ifing us, we wouldn't have dropped.
I mean, clarity has been a word that has been used for me for as long as I can remember. You're so clear. And again, I think that part of that's so fascinating about human design is things that have been told to me, probably all of us, all our life, that we didn't understand why somebody keeps saying it, because you maybe don't internally, it's just who you are. So like when somebody says, Alice used to say this, still says this to me all the time, you're so clear, you're so clear. And I'm like, okay, but I don't know any different. So there's nothing, when somebody points it out to me, it's so interesting. And I think that's the thing that's so fascinating about human design, because once you know it, all the things you've been told of how you are is obvious. It's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yes.
That's what people have been telling me my entire life, but that's just who I am. So I didn't know that it was anything special or anything different, but we are all unique.
Yes.
In the
Yes.
human design.
When I look at your chart, Lisa, I think that directness comes because your G center, which is all about your identity, your direction. So you know who you are, you know where you're going, and you conditioning aside, you love all parts of you, right? That's what that definition there offers. Yours is connected to your throat.
Yeah.
Our communication and manifestation. So it's second nature. You're going to just share it like that. There's nothing in between that. There's no mechanics in there that slows that down. It's just pew, right? And sometimes you might even shock yourself. You're like, what the, oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So it is, right? Like so that's why you articulating and being clear and definitive is powerful, right? That's why it's so powerful, because there's conviction in it. There's no question, you know?
Yeah.
Really cool.
God, we could go. We say this all the time with our guests too, because we could literally go on and on. But I really strongly, if any of this lands for anyone listening, I am going to invite you very strongly as a manifester to hire Amy and have a reading, because if you are curious, if this has piqued your interest, please go and get a reading from her, because it could change everything about how you show up in this world as a partner, as a parent, as a friend, as an employee, as a manager, just as a human being. I found it to be freeing. Freeing, and I said this to Kari earlier, freeing, and also because as a manifester, I know I have impact, there does feel like a sense of responsibility, but one that I'm aware of now and willing to take on. So again, it's just this knowing that is just, I know it's changed my life. There's no question. And Kari, I think you feel this similar, although you're a little behind in terms of really enveloping in it the way I have, but it feels like you wouldn't have said yes to this if it didn't feel like important.
No, it does. It does. It's something I'm really, kind of paying attention to. And as Amy knows, I'll reach out to her and be like, some of this, I think I must be really conditioned because it doesn't appeal to me. So it's really kind of inviting me to walk through it and think about it differently. I have a lot of things just an example being there's a very rare component of my particular design as like I'm a less than 1% within that projector, and Amy just so beautifully was like, you're here to, you're here with unconditional love. You're here to guide people. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound really fun and powerful. And you were like, that's just beautiful. I mean, it's so funny. My conditioning response to it was like, well, what am I supposed to do with that?
But honestly, Kari, that goes back to what's been modeled for you. Has that been praised, And I just love to say, I mean, Lisa, to your point about there's a responsibility to it, but just remember you chose it.
Oh, yeah. That's what I said.
And interestingly, when you said it, even the people who conditioned me, who are lovely humans, we're all humans. Like my own father, the young Marine fighter pilot who raised me, and conditioned a lot of us to be like not emotional beings. He used to say, I have him on video saying, you have the most enormous capacity for love of anyone I've ever met.
Aw.
And so something about that is also about, is speaking to that. So this is like, as Lisa says, like, maybe I'm not as super aware or following it. Like, I am just so here for it. I'm learning it. I'm just responding to it. And I am really encouraging people to look into that, because yeah, if you have more than one child, like we all do, it is so fascinating to understand, how differently they show up and how differently they respond to things, and to find harmony is probably the most beautiful thing I'm getting from this here.
Yeah.
Right. The harmony piece.
Maybe this will land for you, Kari. Your energy type as a projector, you are here to understand the other.
Yeah.
So you're not so necessarily focused on your energetic aura, that yet when you hear the impact that you have on others with what you do, it is important for you to understand others. So in this instance, maybe this will be more beneficial in your life as it relates to your close loved ones, and understanding them, therefore how you guys interact with each other will be elevated. It's inevitable. Where Lisa and I, we're not here to understand ourselves. We're not here to understand the other. We're here to understand our impact. And do you feel how that just sounds and feels different? It kind of feels like, wow, I don't have a personal touch about me at all, which isn't true, because I'm emotional. I have all these fucking emotional waves that are in my way. But it is important for me to stay in my lane and understand that. And I think that if each and every one of us just understood just a little bit of our dynamics, for you, Kari, like when you're feeling bitter, you are spinning your energy, either with the wrong people in the wrong environment, the wrong project, you name it, right? And that's when Lisa and I are feeling anger. And I love knowing that red flag. I love knowing when that engine light comes on, I'm like, okay. Where before I would stay pissed. And I can be pissed, great. But I also know there's a message there for me with that.
Oh, yes. The timing of my readings with you were so great, because we went through something with my son that about, where I was so bitter about the way it was going down. Lisa knows about it. And it was just a reminder to me to step the fuck back. Just step back and like, wait to be called into this. Like, take care of yourself, have your feelings, they're justified, but also like, you're not operating in the way that's going to be most helpful for you here, me talking to myself and for everyone else. And so like, I stepped back, took care of myself, and then the other things ensued. I got invited in to kind of help, clean it up and move forward. So it was beautifully timed. So even if I'm floundering in it less than Lisa ever was, I am so benefiting from this. So thank you.
I floundered at the beginning. That's my point, right? Like that's what I'm saying. Like even though we both had readings earlier, I got deeper into this with Amy as she, right. And so I just have, and because I've been hiring her for my clients, I'm learning about these other ones in a way that I had never known. And so that's been really fascinating to me. And so I'm just saying, like, I'm your third grader to your first grader in human design.
Yay, thanks. Thanks, third grader.
But you'll get right up there with me.
I like to play with you at recess. Yeah.
We do like to play at recess.
I actually, to be honest, when I was listening to you two talk, and you were talking about Lisa and I was like, you sound kind of like the cool kids on the playground.
And see, the thing is we don't know that.
Right.
I know it's true. Like Lisa,
we're just caught up in our own little world going, oh, what? You wanted to do what? I didn't know. Huh.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
I had no idea.
That's awesome.
So funny. So as we do every time, we asked for a favorite song, and Amy did ask me to actually do the lyrics, but I would love for you to share a little bit about why this is your favorite song. As soon as you said it, I was like, of course this is, but go ahead.
Such a rad song. It's a rad.
It totally is.
Without question. And quite frankly, I wanted it to be our podcast intro, but you got to pay $1 gajillion to use somebody else.
I used my daughters. It was really good to have a musician in the house.
My podcast co-host created ours. I was like, great, then we don't have to pay anybody anything. So yay. But this song came into my awareness in January of 22 when I was in Costa Rica at my favorite human design reader training. Now I've done 3, But this one was, first of all, I was entrenched in it for 11 straight days, where I met my podcast co-host. And I had so many epiphanies about my design. I think I was in it trying to learn it for others because I was just so fascinated by it. But this retreat that I went on when I was learning, I was entrenched in mine. And this song just landed. And my beautiful projector co-host was singing it in the shower. And I was just like, what? It just landed so much, and it feels so freeing, and that's why it's just been a favorite ever since.
Do you want to say what it is, and then I'll read the lyrics?
I Am Woman.
By Emmy Mel.
Yeah.
Melly?
Is it Melly? I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I don't want to butcher it.
Okay. I think I've said this before in pods, and I'm not exactly sure. This is still a little early when this is good, but very soon after you hear this pod, we are going to be releasing our playlist. So we have been putting together a playlist of all the songs we've quoted in order. So I think you might be episode 22, and our plan is to release on episode 25. So everybody will have access to all these songs we've quoted over the course of our first 25 episodes. So yes, I Am Woman. And holy shit, you could have written this, Amy, quite frankly. But here's at least the first verse. The whole song's amazing. I am classy, I am modern, I live my own design. I am cherry, I am lemon, I'm the sweetest key lime pie. I'm electric, I am bass, I'm the beat of my own drum. I can make your goosebumps raise with the tracing of my thumb. Mic fucking drop on
And
that. Holy
damn
shit.
sexy. That is
Oh my God.
sexy lyrics. Wow.
So good.
Yeah. And that's, like when you asked me that, it was just a no-brainer. And then I think about how you guys, embody the sexiness that we get to have at this stage of our life. And I just think, all these little ones that are learning their designs are going to own all of this
From the get-go.
Yeah. And not have to wait till we're past our Chiron return to embrace it,
Oh my gosh. I'm just having this really quick thought. My son just returned from Dominican Republic, and my husband had been there for something years ago in med school. Like he went there, and he said he was in this village with people who didn't speak English, and they had all these they were the happiest, coolest people he's ever met, and they had all these hand-me-downs that had been donated. And this one guy was the coolest guy in the whole village. He just would kind of gather people. He was wearing a t-shirt that said "Sexy Grandma." And he asked them what it meant, and they told him. He's like, oh, and they're like, no, that's really cool. And so they decided while they were there to make it like a really big compliment. And I was listening to you and thinking, you are the sexiest grandma ever. So I wish I could get you that t-shirt.
My daughter would have a stroke if I wore that around her, which makes me want to do it.
I think we're gonna do that, Lisa. We're gonna order that t-shirt or
absolutely. We're gonna figure this
sexy
out.
Grandma. Wow.
Oh my God, so much. Well, again, this conversation, I adore you, obviously. I love you so much. I am so glad you came into my life in 2018. I love anytime we can talk about human design. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit reading Kari's script, and it's so funny because it said there should be a whole podcast about it. Oh, there it is. There is a whole podcast about it, and Amy runs it with her co-host. Can you share the podcast and say what your co-host's name is?
Yes, her name is Monique, and it is, yes, very focused around human design, but is our lived experiences through the lens of human design, because it makes it understandable. There's so many weird words.
Yes.
And
Totally.
we get technical and we say some of the words, but we're not teachy and preachy. We're showing you how we are navigating the experiment for ourselves through our lived experiences. And we bring guests on who are doing the same thing.
I think that's what makes you so fucking brilliant at this, is you make it so relatable.
Totally.
I mean, isn't that what you want to hear? Is
Yes.
that's
Applicable
what I wanted.
stuff.
Yes, that's what I wanted. So
yeah, I was recently being asked about what's someone's secret sauce. That's your secret sauce, is you make things so real and relatable.
I've said for years, I teach best what I needed to learn most.
There you
So
go.
say the name of the podcast again, and we'll be putting all these links up, obviously, but say the name of the podcast and where they can find you. And then we've got a special offer for our listeners.
Yes, beautiful. The name of the podcast is Love Human, Be Spirit. You can find it on every single platform that's out there. And then I linked my store in the show notes. I mean, I'm not a big social media person, right? So you can message me out there, but your best bet is to probably just find me on my website or just reach out to me. You know, I'll give you my email and that kind of thing. That's just probably the best. I'm at Amy A. Douglas. That's my website. And it just shares all the different offerings that I have. But
it's a beautiful website. I send my clients there a lot. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah.
And as a listener of the things we know, if you put in the code TWK, you will get a 10% discount off a reading from Amy, and it is worth every goddamn penny.
Sure, for sure. Okay.
No question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everyone, that's it. I hate to say that's it because I want to keep talking, but that's it for this week's episode. So if you want to keep learning more about human design, and I'm certain you do because I can feel it and I'm a projector, check the show notes and our posts on our Facebook and Instagram pages where you're going to find links about Amy and her work. And while you're there, please leave a comment with any thoughts on any of our posts there, and any questions you have for Amy, we'll make her check them. Anything that comes up for you today. So thank you so much for being here, Amy. Thank you, listeners. And until next week's episode, just thank you for being part of this and for enriching our circle so much.
It was such a pleasure for me. Thank you, ladies. Your guys are both special humans in my life. So thank you.
Thanks. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.